All right, welcome back to another E7 video. Today we got the preview for Aube. Okay, this is late, but hey, we're gonna do what we can. All right, but without further ado, don't want to waste any time. Let's get into the Aube preview.
Quick as the tide, chasing the decisive moment.
Right, taking a look at her stats, she does share the same stat line with Sea Phantom Politics. I don't know who else, but she does have that 120 base speed, decent health, defense is alright, and she has no effectiveness starting, although she does have effectiveness in her triple S imprint, right, and attack for the team. Most of the times you're probably using the open imprint attack for the team, but I guess sometimes you might use the concentrated one. But if you do want to dupe her out, then I guess you can use your slates on her if you wish, because I still do suspect that we are going to get a triple banner very soon. And I hear a lot of people saying they want to go for photogenics, right? And you know, that banner doesn't really have a quote unquote pity on it, right? You have to summon, if you get unlucky, at least 100 times to get a copy of an artifact, right? I think it's 100 coins for an artifact and then 120 for a hero, right? So imagine you pity Aube and then you have to go do that. So just keep it in mind. So you might want to use slates instead of like chasing dupes, although her artifact, it does seem like it might want to be max. But that's that about her stats. Let's go into her kit. Starting off with the skill 2 here. It's an active skill, not a passive. Film Fiesta. Releases the moment engraved in the film with a 70 to 100% chance to grant Cascade to all allies and grant skill nullifier once and an extra turn to the caster. So she gives her whole team Cascade. And I know how I keep talking about Cascade. They did give Cascade to Elvira as well. That's funny. But pop damage, good against a lot of things, right? To finish off anything. And since it's an extra turn as well, think about like things like Saria, you know. If you extra turn and you go into a Saria, then you can finish off, you know, with a Cascade, hopefully, things that might be a little bit more tanky and might live a little bit from the S2, right? So yeah, there is that. Dealing with squishier targets like Free Ren, maybe if you get like 4 people to gang up on her with a Cascade, then you can be able to, you know, kill her, right? I said the same thing with Elvira, right? They're adding a lot of pop damage stuff, the curse, the pop damage, the Cascade she gives after she dies, you know, things like that. We'll see how this goes. Obviously, it's an extra turn. Things like beat-on will get in her way, right? I think more than RNL, right? I think more than RNL, beat-on is going to shut this off a little bit. Then we come to the skill here. And I think some people are down. They're not. I don't think people are valuing this thing as highly as they should. A lot of people are saying that this character is not. I mean, the S2 is not too crazy, but the skill 3, I think it is quite interesting. So skill 3, active skill, Eternal Moment. Fixes all enemies in a frame, dispelling 2 buffs, right? 2 buff strip. So it means, yeah, you can buff stack against it, but most of the times you're not doing that, right? But you can buff stack against it, right? Before a 72, 100% chance each to inflict Immobilize, which is a new debuff, and inflict Restrict for 2 turns, right? Concealment will remain throughout the battle, right? What is Immobilize? Well, Immobilize says you cannot receive combat readiness if increased effects provided by the speed stat, right? Dispelled at the start of someone's 4th turn. And this includes you, your team, or enemy team, right? As long as 4 turns have passed, character turns have passed, this will be dispelled. The thing is, you might say, well, okay, we'll just push up and cleanse it, right? But no, this thing has a ignore ER soul burn, right? So things like, think about it. What pushes up after you use a non-attack skill? Secret Art Storm Sword on Nurse Eula. You get restricted, right? There's a restrict on there. If she gets a soul burn into you, or if she just lands into you, right? You cannot push up with Secret Art Storm Sword. Beedom, who's on a lot of the times nowadays on Excommunicant Sensor, if she lands on you or she slow burns into you, you're not pushing up, right? And even if you do push up, if you're on Excommunicant Sensor, you cannot, you don't have a cleanse, right? You don't have a cleanse, so your rest of your allies are still stuck on the bar, right? It's although it does add to one turn off, it does add for like one turn of the 4 turn counter, right? So I guess you have that, all right? Things like, even if you get if you I'm saying if you have a soul burn, right? Things like Achates, right? Emmeline Achates, she can't push up because her S3 won't push her up, so she won't be able to turn those buffs, those debuffs into buffs. Things like that, right? There's a lot of things that you that restrict really gets into. Obviously, there's things like Biblis. If you like Biblis with her Veritas, it will eventually cleanse her. You have things like Dilibet. If she lands everything, Dilibet will proc, and then they'll go. You have things like Genesis Ras. Maybe you might make a comeback just because, well, Genesis Ras is, Genesis Raz is immune. Like, yeah, he's just immune to debuffs and stuff like that. There's a lot of things. There's units that cleanse themselves, like Estelle and things like that. If their team takes damage, there's a lot of things, right? There's a lot of things that do that. Now, Zio as well, although she does have this concealment thing, which says, well, when another ally is present, prevents enemies from selecting the bearer as a skilled target. Now, this is a undispellable buff. It is not a unique effect, which means Noto's domain can get rid of that, right? Noto's domain can get rid of it. And then, but Zio, even though he cannot hit her directly, Zio has so many bridges now, it's ridiculous. Like, things like Fulmir, things like Chudwig, right? Even Elvira, the new Elvira can push up. She can push up, and go. It depends. Like, there's a lot of things that Zio can do, to the rest of your team. Before Requiem Rwana bridge, P Flan bridge, any bridge with Zio, like, you can get around your concealment very easily, right? So if you're playing this unit aggressively, maybe you might be banning Zio, you might be banning Zio. So I guess there's that. But this skill is very strong because it just says you don't move. It literally just says, okay, you're on the bar and you stay there for at least 4 characters' turn. Now the downs, I won't classify it as a downside, but I guess you can call it a downside, is if you outspeed a unit. This doesn't push back or anything, right? It doesn't push back or anything. So if you outspeed a unit, you press F3 and then you take your 4 turns, and by that time you don't finish the enemy off, or a key unit off, or a few key units off. Remember, let's say you outsped somebody and they're at like 95% on the bar. When you have to time it properly, because when you break that debuff off after the 4 turns, they're immediately gonna start moving, right? So, and their entire team is gonna start moving. So now I feel like that's the part where you have to kind of play aggressively, because you want to get rid of units as soon as possible, so that way when they start moving, they've already at a disadvantage. That's the only thing I see bad about this skill. Well, not necessarily bad. You just have to be able to, like, beat the enemy down before they move, right? Before they start moving again, technically, right? It's like a freeze frame. It's basically like a freeze frame. You freeze them in time, you beat them up, and then they start moving again, right? You might have seen some things like that in a lot of different gacha games where there's like a freeze time thing. There's not even in gacha games. There's a lot of things like in Zelda and things like that. I know they had like that freeze time, golden freeze thing where you have to like hit the boss a bunch of times and then they take a bunch of damage and then they start moving again. There's things like that. I don't know. I'm yapping about that, but just so you understand that this thing has a lot of value in it. And I think some people are downplaying it. Some people are saying, calling her mid. Obviously, this is just how I see it, and she can very much be mid on release. But I think the skill on paper is very strong. And like one last thing too with this skill is that I wonder if she does get through a draft, will we see things like, how they had like the villager stuff? I wonder if we're gonna see like base speed DPSs, right, that are able to like just put more damage into and have them like just creep up on the units that are stuck on the bar, right? I wonder if we're gonna see anything like that, because they can't move, right? And you have to tune it in such a way that your other units don't just lap your DPS over and over, right? But I wonder if we're gonna see base speed damage dealers just lap and just be able to do so much damage. We'll see though. We will see. Okay, and then her skill 1 attacks the enemy with coral magic and decreases combat readiness by up to 20%, right? So there is your combat readiness push if you're able to lap around with Aube. It's not the same. She doesn't have like the rage buff like Sea Phantom Politics does, which I think rage buff does give you speed. So I don't know if she'll be able to lap around easily like that, but if she's able to do, then you can push back a key unit by 20%, something like their pusher, like their CR pusher, their no Shula or anything like that. You can try to push it back, right? That's how I see the skill, but not too much going for it. Finally, we come to our artifact here, and it is unfortunate. It is like kind of one of those artifacts that, the activation chance thing. After using a non-attack skill, right, has a 100% chance each to grant, right, swift attack, and for 2 turns, increase speed to the ally with the highest attack. Can only be activated once every 3 turns. Now, when it comes to artifacts for her, swift attack, obviously pretty good for, a lot of DPSs, things like Freeran. The new Elvira also has a 50% CR push, so you can get her back around to go into that seal, into that fair faster, and anybody else that has a 50% CR push. Not only that, but anybody you just want to cycle around, right? So it's not controllable. It just goes on whoever has your highest attack. You can choose, but I guess you can draft accordingly, pick accordingly, right? When it comes to other artifacts for her, I think there are other possibilities. I've heard one that seems kind of funny. Ludwig's artifact, if you for generating souls for the soul burn, if you're allowed to S2, right? If you're allowed to S2, if you have a max Ludwig's artifact, things like what else generates souls? Unseen Observer. I don't know if that's going to be any good though, but the ones that I see as well could be Ahmed's artifact for that crit damage buff, right? Ahmed's artifact because since you have 2 non-attack skills, you can proc it, right? Increases the combat readiness, I think, of the highest attack ally as well, right? By 16% or something like that. Yeah, so there's something like that, yeah. And then the one that I'm thinking of also is the Saria artifact, right? Awakened Leaf, right? So you can push up the back line and get your DPS going, hopefully, or whoever else you want to bridge, right? Things like that. So I think those artifacts are cool. The other one sounds interesting as well for generating souls at the end. In the turn, you generate a soul, start of your turn or whatever. Generate some souls. And yeah, I think I think that's pretty much it for the kit. She will be coming out this week in a few days. She's coming out. So yeah, make sure you refresh your shop. And yeah.